All right, let's kick off this deep dive. We're going to really dig into this article from the Indian Express, all about the Reserve Bank of India and how they're looking at AI in finance. And it seems like they're serious about it. They want to make sure that AI is used responsibly in this sector. I mean, AI making decisions about loans and investments, that's a big deal, right?
Oh, absolutely it is. I think what's really interesting to me is that they've put together this committee, a committee of 8 experts, to actually develop a framework for using AI. They're calling it the Framework for Responsible and Ethical Enablement of AI Committee.
Okay, so free AI.
Yeah, exactly. Free AI.
I like it. It's very catchy. But who are these experts? Like, what makes them, able to take this on?
Well, it's a really fascinating mix of people. The committee is led by a professor from IIT Bombay, which is, as you know, one of India's top tech schools.
Yeah.
And then you also got members from, big names in finance like HDFC Bank, and then tech giants like Microsoft India, and even someone from the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology.
Wow. So they've got like all sides covered. It sounds like they're really going for this whole comprehensive approach. But they only have 6 months. That's not a lot of time to come up with these recommendations. So what are they going to prioritize?
Well, I think one of the first things they're going to do is look at how AI is already being used in finance,
Uh,
both in India and around the world. It'll be really interesting to see what they find. I mean, we're probably already interacting with AI-driven financial systems more than we even realize.
you're right. I hadn't even thought about it like that. Are we talking about like full-on robots making loan decisions? Or is it more kind of behind the scenes?
I think it's probably a combination of both. We might not have robot loan officers yet, and at least not in a like literal sense, but AI is definitely being used for things like fraud detection and risk assessment
Yeah.
and those customer service chatbots.
Oh.
So it's probably playing a much bigger role than we think.
Okay, so it sounds like AI is already kind of embedded in finance in a way. But then if there are these risks, why is the RBI even bothering with AI? Like, what's the benefit they're hoping to get from this?
That's a really good question. And it really gets at the potential benefits that AI offers. I mean, imagine like getting a loan approved in minutes instead of days,
Wow.
or having financial products that are personalized just for you. And AI could even help bring financial services to people who haven't had access before, like people in rural communities who might not have a bank nearby.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. So the RBI is looking at this because they think AI could make things more efficient, but also potentially more inclusive for everybody. I like that.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the other side of that. What about the risks? What are some of the things this committee needs to look at?
One of the biggest concerns with AI is bias. If the algorithms are trained on data that already has bias in it, then the AI could actually make that bias worse. And we need to think about how that could play out in things like loan approvals and credit scoring, even investment recommendations.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And while we're on the topic of data, what about privacy? Like, with AI using all this financial information about people, how do we make sure that information stays safe and isn't misused?
Absolutely. Data privacy and security are definitely huge concerns with AI. And there's also the risk of these AI systems being manipulated or hacked, which could lead to financial losses or even like instability in the markets.
So this committee has a lot to figure out. How to use AI for good, but also how to prevent those risks. So their goal is to create this whole framework for AI in Indian finance.
Right. Basically, they're trying to come up with guidelines, almost like a rule book for how AI should be developed and used. And this could really make India a leader in ethical AI.
That would be huge. But what would that framework actually look like? Like, what kind of guidance would it give?
Well, for example, it would need to set clear expectations for data privacy and security, making sure that those things are built into any AI systems from the start.
That makes sense. But who would be in charge of making sure those rules are followed?
That's a really important question. And it gets into this whole idea of AI governance, which is something else the committee is looking at. So they need to figure out who's accountable when an AI makes a decision and how to balance the power of AI with human oversight.
So we're talking about creating this whole system of rules around AI. It's a big job.
Yeah, it really is. And it brings up an interesting question, like what happens if AI makes a mistake?
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
What if a system, denies somebody a loan or approves a loan that it shouldn't have?
Yeah.
Who's responsible in that situation?
Right. That's a good point. It's like, how do we balance giving AI power with still having humans check things and be accountable?
Exactly. And that's where regulation comes in. The recommendations from this committee are probably going to lead to some very specific rules and policies that financial institutions will have to follow.
So it's not just like general ideas. They're going to have to actually figure out how these AI systems are built and used.
Yeah, you need like the blueprint, but you also need like the building codes and inspectors to make sure it's all safe. So the committee is like making the blueprint,
Okay.
and then the RBI will be the inspector.
That makes a lot of sense. But how do you even regulate something like AI? It's changing so fast.
That's the big question. Regulators all over the world are struggling with that right now.
Yeah.
And that's why this committee's work is so important. They're trying to stay ahead of the curve. Think about potential problems and make a framework that can change as AI changes.
It's like they're trying to predict the future.
In a way, they are.
Okay, so let's say they finish their report.
Okay.
What happens next?
Well, that report is going to be really important. It's going to give the RBI a roadmap for regulations.
So it's like a set of tools.
Exactly.
And then the RBI has to build the framework.
Right. And you need people from different areas working together. You need the academics who understand AI,
Okay.
and policymakers who understand the rules, and industry experts who know how AI is used in finance.
Like putting together a team of superheroes?
Exactly. And remember, they're not doing this in isolation. They'll be looking at what's happening in other countries.
Oh,
What's working, what's not working. India has a chance to learn from all that.
Right.
And maybe even create a model for ethical AI.
That would be amazing. So for our listeners who are waiting for this report, what are some things they should look for? What big questions do we hope they'll answer?
Well, one big thing will be data governance. How will they handle privacy, security, and bias?
Yeah, all those are really important. And what about who's responsible? Like if an AI makes a bad decision.
I hope they'll give guidance on that. How to make sure someone is accountable.
Okay. And what about the financial institutions? Will there be rules for them about using AI?
Most likely. The report should address transparency, making sure that these AI systems are understandable and that we can check them for problems.
So it's not just about making AI, but making AI we can trust.
Exactly. And that trust is key.
Okay, so let's talk about the good stuff. We've talked about the risks. But what are some of the good things AI could do in finance?
Well, we touched on this before, but AI could make things faster, more efficient,
Right?
and more tailored to individuals. Imagine getting a loan approved in minutes, or having a chatbot answer your questions anytime.
Like a 247 personal financial assistant.
Exactly, and it goes beyond that. AI could be a game changer for financial inclusion.
How so?
Think about people who don't have traditional credit scores.
Yeah.
AI could use different data to assess their creditworthiness.
So they could get loans more easily.
Exactly.
That would be a huge change.
It would. And that's why getting this right is so important. The decisions we make now about AI will have a big impact down the road.
It's a big responsibility.
It is.
Okay, so the committee still has work to do. We'll have to wait and see what they come up with.
Definitely. This is just the start of a really important conversation.
It really does feel like a big shift is coming with AI and finance. It's exciting, but also, a bit scary. It makes you think, what if we were on that committee, the free AI committee? What would be the most important things to us?
That's a great question. I think for me, it would be finding that balance between like encouraging innovation,
Right.
but also protecting consumers. We want to see new AI tools, but they need to be safe and fair for everyone.
Yeah, for sure. We don't want to stop progress, but we don't want to rush into things either.
Exactly. And the other big challenge is how to make the framework future-proof. AI is always changing, right? So how do we make guidelines that can keep up?
It's true. It's not like you can just make rules and be done. It's like they're trying to write the rules for a game where the rules are always changing.
That's a great way to put it.
So what do you think the future holds for AI in India? Are we heading towards this perfect world with personalized finance? Or are there big problems ahead?
I think it'll probably be somewhere in between.
Okay.
AI has the potential to make things better and more accessible, but there are definitely risks to watch out for. It's going to take a lot of work.
Yeah.
And collaboration, and being ready to adapt.
It sounds like the RBI setting up this committee is a good first step. They're taking this seriously.
Definitely. And I think it's important for all of us to pay attention.
Even if we're not, like, in finance.
Yeah, even if we're not, AI is going to affect everyone.
Yeah.
And the decisions being made now will shape the future.
That's a good point. So to our listeners, stay curious, stay informed, and keep an eye out for that report from the Free AI Committee.
It'll be interesting to see what they recommend.
Yeah, it will. All right, that wraps up this deep dive. Thanks for joining us to explore AI in Indian finance. We'll be back soon with another deep dive into something else that's shaping our world. Until then, keep learning.